Okay, now for our second topic of discussion, let's discuss the issue, or not really an issue, but the evolution of how uh, boxing on television has evolved in past decades. The brand of HBO boxing was the king of the hill. They were the entity that really put boxing on the international map. For the past more or less around 45 years, it has been the gold standard of the presentation of the sport of professional boxing on television. And now that the internet has provided different opportunities and different platforms to view boxing, will HBO come back? Because the audience has grown exponentially. There are more colorful fighters that are on the table, that are on the table, so to speak. Will this prod HBO to again get back as a major player as far as the presentation of boxing on television is concerned? What is your opinion, Mr. Sungalia?
Well, I, for one, mourned the departure of HBO boxing when they left the sport because no one had better production quality than them. In fact, I believe when I was speaking with someone from DAZN when they got into the business, they actually wound up contracting the lighting services that HBO boxing had used because that was such a great feature of the sport. You know, it really made the fights feel special in a way. And when you heard that music for HBO boxing, you knew you were going to get something special. It felt like it was like getting the New York Times delivered to your front door and like, okay, this is what I need to know. This is what I need to know in boxing. These fighters are special because they're fighting on HBO. It was a big blow, but HBO, you could tell that the writing was on the wall for a while because the quality of their matchups had declined. They were not getting the big fights that they typically had been. I believe the last major star that they were in bed with was Canelo Alvarez. And when that started to move away, there was just, they left a big void there in terms of star power. Now, they were saying that HBO, was saying that their TV shows are actually what draws in subscribers, not their boxing. And they were heavily invested in it at the time, Game of Thrones. And, they said they were doing a lot more revenue with that instead of boxing. It left a real void in the sport.
With other new players that are now involved with boxing, you have live streaming. You have, of course, cable television. Will the generation of more colorful fighters, and we're already seeing a lot of them on the back burner, more so by the time COVID has already been solved, hopefully by next year, with the health and safety situation more or less or most likely to improve by 2022. Do you think HBO will join the game again?
I can't imagine so, just because the cost to get back into the game at a meaningful level will be so prohibitive. When DAZN came in and basically flooded the market with money and raised the prices, raised the purses for fighters that they were showing. It made it harder for other boxing promoters to kind of be competitive or boxing platforms. I think that they're moving beyond it. For me, I don't subscribe to HBO anymore because they don't have boxing. And whatever TV shows that they thought that were great, I didn't think highly of them. I haven't watched them really since The Sopranos. But they are, they really have something special there. When you talk about Jim Lampley, who I think was the greatest blow-by-blow man of all time, Larry Merchant, who really was an idol of mine, and I've been fortunate to meet on a number of occasions. He had such an honesty that he brought to ringside. He wasn't there to promote an event. He wasn't there. He was a journalist, and he was a real journalist. and he said what was on his mind, and he said what he felt. And sometimes I rubbed people the wrong way. He wasn't a cheerleader like sometimes you see. He was there to give. He was on the viewer's side, not the promoter's side. So I always respected that. And then you had all of their expert commentators. You had Emmanuel Stewart, who brought so much energy and so much enthusiasm for the sport. And George Foreman, some people didn't like him as a commentator. I loved him as a commentator. I think he was one of the most likable people that have ever
Ferdy
been born.
Pacheco, throw in the mix, Ferdy Pacheco.
I wasn't a Pacheco fan personally. I didn't like his commentary, to be honest.
Well, Sugar Ray, throw Sugar Ray Leonard into the mix.
I wasn't a Sugar Ray Leonard commentary fan as either. Just I felt like he was saying the obvious. There were some that weren't great. I thought Roy Jones in the 90s was amazing. Roy Jones and I had so many fun things to say. Like one time Larry Merchant was chiding Chris Bird against Ike Ibeabuchi. And Jim Lampley says, well, this is the manly art of self-defense. And Larry Merchant says, there's nothing manly about this. And he's like, Larry Merchant says, I wonder if those punches even hurt at all. And Roy Jones says, I don't know. Why don't you jump in there and find out? I loved that team. They had an energy that just and the chemistry that I really miss. And that was the soundtrack to my boxing youth.
Well, just like you and many other boxing fans, I will leave this topic with a very, very interesting statistics. Comparatively how HBO has been. One of the new players, Showtime, who eventually started giving content to HBO, presented 22 live boxing events in 2018 alone. Think about that.